Hi friends, it's Chrissy from firstdayofhome.com, and I'm so excited to be back this week because last week I was struggling with one of those winter colds. I'm feeling much better now and ready to hit the ground running, and I can't wait to share this DIY project with you. It's a reversible farmhouse wood sign, and you can see it here behind me in my winter mantle decor. Well, the best part about this sign is that it's reversible and removable. So once you build the wooden sign, you can put on any design that you want, and you can always remove it later and use both sides of the sign. So it's multi-purpose. You can use it at any room of your house or for any holiday occasion. Here I'm using a fun phrase from one of my all-time favorite movies, The Sound of Music, but you can always switch it up in whatever strikes your fancy. So I love this project and I can't wait to show you the behind the scenes. If you're new to my channel, I wanted to say a quick welcome and thanks for joining me. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and then ring the bell for more crafts and DIY projects. We have a lot of fun on this channel and I would love for you to stick around for more of that. So let's go ahead and talk about what you'll need to get started. You'll want to start by getting your plywood at a local Home Depot or Lowe's store, and I will talk about the specific dimensions that you'd want. Of course, you can make your sign any size. I made mine about 30 by 26 inches, and I would just suggest if it's going in a big spot like your fireplace mantle, go big. Don't do it too small because you want a big statement piece. Of course, you can also make a small sign for a kitchen or bathroom. So just know what dimensions you're aiming for the actual sign before you head over to your home improvement store. And if you don't have fancy woodworking skills, don't worry. You can actually get a few cuts for free at Home Depot or Lowe's. So just know that you'll be able to get some help there to bring your plywood home. And let's talk a little bit about what kind of plywood and what framing you'll want for your sign. I suggest getting plywood that's at least 1/2 inch thick just to make sure your wood doesn't split if you use finishing nails, which you can see here. I'm using furring strips as my frame around the sign, and you can see it leaves a little bit of overhang on each side of the sign. So I have my wood ready to paint. It's been sanded, it's cut to the right dimensions, and I'm going to quickly make my own chalk paint. You can skip this step and buy off-the-shelf chalk paint at any craft store or DIY home improvement store. I like to make my own because it's a little bit cheaper and I can turn any latex paint that we have in the house into chalk paint by just adding a little bit of calcium carbonate and water. That's all you need to add. So if you're interested in learning how to make your own chalk paint, I'll leave a link to this product below. A little bit goes a long way, and we'll get painting as soon as I get my chalk paint ready. I'm gonna start painting, and I just like to brush with the grain and the direction of the grain and start at one end, but there's really nothing special to how you wanna paint it. You can use either a roller brush or a regular paintbrush as I'm using. It's really just your personal preference. I've heard some people say that they prefer to use a regular bristle brush like this just because you don't lose as much paint as you might with a roller brush. But since I'm not really worried about wasting a lot of paint using my own chalk paint, I could easily use a roller brush instead. On the furring strips, I used a beautiful Minwax stain that I just love, and I will link to this below. I wanted to make sure all my strips were stained before I attached them to the sign. If you're using small finishing nails to attach your frame to the sign, you'll want to pre-drill a few holes first so that your wood doesn't crack when you nail the nails in. You can see here that I have the nails partly in before I attach this strip to the side of my sign, and I'm just going to nail them right in with a hammer and line it up to the bottom frame. So I'm not doing any fancy mitered corners on this sign. I'm just simply attaching 4 strips that are going to overlap, and I've measured them so that hopefully they will all fit correctly on the sign, and it's pretty simple when you use these little finishing nails. I decided to use my Silhouette Cameo to make my vinyl letters, but you have the option of buying vinyl letters at any kind of hobby store, or you can also paint your letters on. Now, I just think it's much more versatile when you have these vinyl letters so that you can remove them later and change up the design whenever you decide to. Now, if you've done a lot of work with Cameo or Cricut in the past, you know when you work with vinyl, you have to weed the material or the negative space that you don't want showing. So here I'm just removing the black vinyl that I don't want to show to reveal my letters. And then I want to make sure that for those letters that have holes in the center, like P's or G's, you want to make sure you get those pieces too so that you don't accidentally transfer some of those spaces that will make your letters look a little funny on your sign. Now, before you begin transferring your design, it's always a good idea just to place your phrases on the sign, measure it out roughly so that you know more or less what the spacing should be. So here's a look at my sign before I started transferring the vinyl letters. I'm going to take my transfer tape here and cut it to size. I can reuse this for different phrases, so there's no need to cut transfer tape for every single phrase. So I'm just going to take my transfer tape and carefully start to press it down. And I actually find that it's easier so it doesn't stick to the surface like you see here. It's easier if you just flip it over and then unroll that transfer tape as you go. And I just find that it works a lot better for a smoother transfer to the transfer tape. Just make sure as you're transferring your design that you're squeezing out any air bubbles as you go along, because that will just cause a lot of problems down the road if you don't do that. Now here's the fun part, we get to transfer our design to the wooden sign. You'll want to just give it a good wipe with a dry cloth before you get started. And then just gently peel back the carrier sheet from the transfer tape, and your vinyl letters should stick to the transfer tape. You may need to rub the letters a little bit and press them down as you go, because they do tend to want to stick to that carrier sheet, but just take it slow and try your best to press down as you go, and you'll get the hang of it eventually. Now, I like to measure the letters from the top or bottom of my sign just to make sure I'm all lined up. I did have a rough idea from measuring it before, but I always like to check like the T's in Winters and that, just to make sure they're all kind of even, because it's such a large sign, it's really hard to tell when you're actually doing it. So I'm just going to peel back the transfer tape now, and you again may need to kind of press down the letters and work with it a little bit, because as you'll see, those letters really like to stick to the transfer tape. So you'll have to work with it and just make sure that you're not pulling up your design as you're trying to transfer it to the sign. By the way, I have used both permanent vinyl and removable vinyl on this sign, and I can tell you they both stick equally well on this sign. So you can really decide which one it is that you want to use, but I found that they both work great on this chalk paint. Here's another look at me transferring my design on my Halloween farmhouse sign. So same concept, same process, but just a different design. So again, this is reversible, and that's why I think this is such a cool way to make your farmhouse sign. By the way, I used permanent vinyl on my Halloween sign and temporary vinyl on my winter mantle sign. So you can see there's really no difference. You can't tell any difference looking at it up close or far away. And here's a final look at that Halloween sign, all transferred and ready to go. You can't even tell that it's not painted on. It looks just like the other farmhouse signs out there. Thanks so much again for joining me. Did you guys have fun? I had a blast, and I hope you have a great time making your own DIY farmhouse signs. Leave a comment for me below and let me know how you plan to customize your sign. And if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. I'll leave a few more videos that I hope you might enjoy, and you can always find more projects like this on my website at firstdayofhome.com. I'll see you next time.